This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Before we get into today's interview, here are a bit about the book from its author.
Hi, my name is Kevin Grant, and I'm from the spicy island of Trinidad. I am the author of The Mind of a Poet. This book is a reflection of the mind, where I would have experienced different emotions and made certain social observations. The book can be found on Amazon, in Kindle and in paperback.
Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Today we have with us first-time author, Rapso artist, and all-round contemplator of life and all that it has to offer, Kevin Grant. Kevin, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I appreciate it a lot.
Okay, Kevin, there's a question that I ask persons who are usually from Trinidad and Tobago. And the question or the scenario is this. Imagine I've come to Trinidad for the very first time and I meet you at the airport. What would you recommend that I try when I come to Trinidad and Tobago? It could be a place, it could be a food. What would you recommend to me if I were to visit Trinidad and Tobago?
That's doubles, man. That would be the first thing. I think any family member of mine that resides in America, Canada, or England, is the first thing they come for is doubles.
Okay. Before we get into the details of the book, let me talk a bit about yourself. How did you get into writing?
Actually, I became a poet and a writer for a Caribbean magazine called the Youth Voice publication in 1980, which was just after I finished school. Right? And it was my first job actually, and I worked there for a few years. And I didn't have any idea or any aspirations of becoming a published author. I was just enjoying writing poems. I continued doing it for a few years, and I joined the Writers Union of Trinidad in 1995, 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed there for a while. It was a nice experience with the Writers Union, and at the time Van Stewart was the president, and he helped me along the way with my writing skills, to improve with my writing skills, and it was a nice experience. And after the Writers Union, I got involved with the music side of me, which was always something that I enjoyed doing, singing. Because actually I took part in a program called the YTEP program in 1991, where I did a course in performing arts, and I graduated in performing arts in 1991. And later on in the 90s, I joined the Rapso fraternity.
Oh, the Rapso fraternity. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, my sobriquet was Lion Prince. So if you go amongst people like Tree Canal and these guys, and you just say Lion Prince, they will know exactly who you're talking about. It was a nice experience in the Rapso fraternity. I met a lot of people. I met Andrew Tanker. I met Merchant. I performed with Merchant. A little before he died, he passed away. I met Merchant, Calypsonian. I met a couple of them as well. It was a nice experience. I performed in the Borrowday in Point Fortin as well, alongside with Rashotia in the Love Circle. Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice experience.
Okay. It sounds like you're no stranger to the arts at all. And if it is, I'm to understand correctly, if it is that you're confident enough to perform, whether I'm assuming poetry in front of groups of persons, putting it onto paper shouldn't be all that difficult?
No, it wouldn't be difficult at all, because Rapso is poetry and music actually, and writing a poem for me is like writing a song, because when I recited some of my poems in public places, some people came up to me and said, "Kevin, you should put that in song. You should put that in song." And I did a few poems and people came up to me and they said, you should put that in a song. I said, actually, I was a singer. so, so you see, so they could already tell that I had the ability to sing by the way I was reciting, by the style I used to recite my poem.
How long did it take for this book to come together?
This was a collection of work that I did over a period of 3 to 4 years. A collection of work that especially most of my work was done during the pandemic.
Okay. Now peruse some of the items, and it sounds like a lot of it is observations or points of view that are based on as you described it in the acknowledgements of the book, observations that you'd have made over time, in which you would have shared your point of view on certain experiences. You would have one of the items that caught my attention was the one that you could correct me when I'm referring to it, etc. The poem that talks about how it is that we live in a cage, and I liked that one.
The Earth is a Cage. The Earth is a Cage was actually a poem that I was thinking about the elderly senior citizens and what they go through with their depression in their old age and loneliness and going through all of these emotions and being affected by society. And unfortunately, the end of the poem, he resorted to suicide. So it was something to think about for like young people. When young people look at a poem like that, they would think ahead of what it would be like when I become an elderly, being depressed by society, being so conscious, because when you get older, you become more conscious about society. And this is an elderly man. This character is an elderly man who was very conscious about society. And he was so conscious that it became heavy on his mind. It was so heavy on his mind that he resorted to suicide. And unfortunately.
Okay. Putting together a book is a really great feat. Again, a lot of persons talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And it took some time for this to come together. But I have to ask, why put a book together in the first place? Was it a dream of yours? Was it a hobby? Give us some reasons.
Actually, when I started writing poems, I had no idea that I would be a published poet or published author, so to speak. Published author. I just enjoyed writing poems, and that was back in 1988, 1989 when I landed my first job as a writer and a poet for a Caribbean magazine called the Youth Voice publication.
Okay.
That was my first job right after school, and I had no idea that I was going to be a published author. Sorry, I had no idea. I just enjoyed writing poems. I continued with it. I went all along to 1996, 1995. I joined the Writers Union of Trinidad and Tobago. And I continued with my poetry. Still, even in 1995, 1996, I had no idea that I would be a published author or have any aspirations to be a published author. I had no desire for it. I was just enjoying poetry. I stayed away. I came out of the poetry limelight for a while. I became a Rapso artist, actually. That's under the umbrella of Brother Resistance and Correga Mandela. And they took me in and I started performing alongside with Tree Canal and Ataclan and these guys. But actually, when you think about it, Kevin, the Rapso is poetry as well, right? So even though I got into the Rapso, I was still into poetry, and I didn't really get out of it, right? Because Rapso is poetry, but poetry in music, right? Spent a few years as a Rapso artist, and I had some experience performing alongside with Rashoti and the Love Circle. And it was a nice experience. And like I said, Rapso is poetry and music. and I left the Rapso fraternity, and I joined the Circle of Poets of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the president at the time was Cassie Senghor, and the chairman was Nicholas. So that was like in 2018. And I stayed with them, and I stayed with the Writers Union of Tobago. And then I decided I wanted to be a published author, right? Then I decided it's time for me to have a book and make it just the beginning of my journey as a poet. And a friend introduced me to KDP Publishing, told me try it out. I tried it, and it's difficult at the start to publish my own book, because actually I never really got help from anybody to assist me with publishing. So I had to learn the ropes on my own. I had to learn everything on my own. So that is why I had to choose that title called The Mind of a Poet, because my mind was so flustered with trying to get things done. So that's why I use the word The Mind of a Poet. And if you look at the picture on the cover of the book, you would see a man holding on to his head. So it's like me trying to put everything in place, always trying to organize and put things in place. And it's not an easy journey, because it's a self journey.
Okay. You're no stranger to the art, based on the details that you'd have given, how it is that you would have been introduced to Rapso all that time ago.
Yes.
I mean, obviously that influenced your work. Anything affected you making the decision to transition from just being a performing artist to just putting the words that you were speaking into a written format to share with persons? I know you would have mentioned KDP publishing being introduced to the mix, but anything else would have factored into the decision that you made? Maybe you wanted to have like your stuff available to persons to have in their hand. Maybe you wanted to reach a larger cross section of persons. Would any of those reasons affected you wanting to go the route of having a book published?
When I left the Rapso fraternity, which I had the opportunity to perform all over Trinidad, unfortunately never out of Trinidad, but all over, including Point Fortin, Borrowdale, and all these places. But when I went back into the poetry, I had the opportunity to perform like a singer, reciting my work in places like the Trinidad Theatre Workshop and Alice Potter Spain, Alice Library, alongside with Paul Keane Douglas. I had some opportunities to perform various places in Trinidad. And so it was a feeling as though I didn't leave music scene.
Okay.
Because I didn't really leave the music scene, because as a Rapso artist, it was poetry in music. Now it's just poetry, strictly poetry.
Okay.
So I'm still in the spotlight.
Okay.
I'm still in the spotlight, and I'm still getting opportunities to perform at various places throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Sometimes I get paid, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do it just for like a publicity stunt, trying to get myself more notice out there. If I get paid, if I don't, it really doesn't matter to me. But it's all about getting your name out there. It's all about getting your work out there.
Okay. But in terms of the book itself, obviously you have a number of poems within the book. Is there anyone that stands out more as compared to the others?
Yes, but there's a good bit of them. I have my book before me here, and I have a few actually, Kevin.
In terms of the persons listening to this podcast right now and being a first-time author, if it is that someone wants to get into writing, what advice do you think you can give to them based on your experience?
A first-time author, someone aspiring to be a published author, would need to understand, Kevin, that maybe I could quote Maya Angelou, who is one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, the American poet. And she said that nothing can dim the light which shines from within. Nothing can dim the light which shines from within. So here you can see how important it is to keep your light shining. And that light is your hope and your dreams and your aspirations, your goals. That's your light. Any darkness around that would be any negative element. But your light is like a candle in the darkness. Let your light shine. And also to keep in mind that it's okay to try different things before you find what you're looking for. Okay. Don't feel bad. Don't worry about anybody laughing at you or anything. It's okay to try different things. It could be 5 different things, 10 different things. Keep trying. But when you find when you find yourself in the groove as a writer, that's when you will stick to it. You will stick to that. Right? That's what I'm trying to say. That a person may try many things, but when you discover that writing is for you, you'll stick to it and you'll never give up. You'll keep that faith. Right?
Okay.
Because a lot of writers, Kevin, do a lot of different things. Like myself, I went into music. I went into various things, various jobs, a lot of jobs I did. But my love for poetry was always there. Right? And sometimes because of life and demands of everyday living, having to pay bills and demands now. So it would set you off track from your goals. So yes, you would like to be a poet full time, but because of the demands of everyday living and the things that you would need to do to survive, that would tend to make people go astray from their goals and aspirations. But don't ever give up. Don't ever give up.
Okay.
Just keep at your work. Keep at it.
Okay. That's very encouraging to hear, man, Kevin, from a first-time author of yourself. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Having had the best of each of those worlds, being a performer and also being a writer, which one do you prefer to convey a message, writing or performing?
That's a good question, Kevin. Actually, becoming a full-time poet wasn't my first love. My first love was singing. But that's why I did a course in performing arts and I graduated in it in 1991 because that was my first love. But it's very difficult in the music industry, and I had some bad experiences. But being a poet was also one of my favorite hobbies. And so to fall back on poetry was not a bad thing at all. It was easy to fall back on poetry because all the songs that I sing, I write them. Nobody writes my songs to me. And so I enjoy being creative with the pen and putting my thoughts or my mind, like the title of the book say, The Mind of a Poet, putting my mind on paper, yeah. So I always enjoyed doing that. So to fall back on poetry, Kevin, was not hard at all.
Having published the book and put it out there, being a first-time author, what are some of the challenges that you experienced?
Being a first-time author, like I said, I became a first-time author in September. So that's about 3 months, roughly. So you could say the marketing phase is still in the air. Yeah, so there's still a lot of work to do with that book. Even though I'm working on my second edition, The Mind of a Poet, the second edition presently. Yes, I'm working on that presently. The first edition, which is The Mind of a Poet, it has a lot of challenges, actually, Kevin. It has a lot of challenges.
Okay.
But I'm reaching a lot of people. I'm reaching people from as far as South Africa, Ghana, America, UK, through the Caribbean. I'm reaching a lot of people. I'm reaching them through social media because I'm a member of many international poetry groups. I'm reaching a lot of people, poetry lovers, that have already told me that they bought a copy of my book on Amazon. So, yes, so that's the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm reaching people.
Okay. That's encouraging to know that your book is actually reaching cross sections of persons like that. if it is that you're performing, let's say, for example, in the stage like in Trinidad also, there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess when it is that you're one type of the media that you use to reach persons changes from one to another, you're actually able to get to the persons who weren't able to be there when it is that you were performing, which is interesting.
Yeah. So with media, social media, I should say, is a great platform to reach people. Actually, you can't really become a successful author without social media. We all know that. So reaching people is very important for an author, reaching as much people as possible throughout the globe. One thing I have discovered is that, Kevin, is that a book cover is the contents of the book, as good as it might be, if the book cover is not attractive enough, you'll face some problems there. A book cover is very important. This is something that I have discovered. And I discovered this actually a few months ago before I published my first book, that a book cover is very important when it comes to marketing.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Even if your poems, this is something that I would like people to take note, right? People who aspire to be a published author. If you have a book with 100 poems and they are all professionally done, and the book cover is not professionally done, you could lose out a lot of sales, a lot of royalties for that, just because of that.
Okay.
You could lose out big time, yeah. A book cover is first appearance, something to catch the eye, that has to stand out more than the content of the book. Then what's in the book will fall into place. Yeah.
I mean, sounding like a first-time author, you have your fair share of lessons that you'd have learned. And if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that there's another book coming out. So the mistakes that you made this time around, you won't be making it the second time around.
That's why I call it the second edition, right? This is just to polish up on some stuff that I wanted to do in the first book, in the first edition. So I am polishing it up in the second edition. And I'm also adding a few surprises in the second edition, a few poems added to the book. Yeah, I'm adding a few more, just making some minor changes.
Okay. When it comes out, we're looking forward to it. All right, so we're wrapping up the interview at this point in time. Mr. Grant, thank you very much for making yourself available, for sharing details about yourself, for sharing details about your book. It has very been an encouragement hearing from you, and not just in terms of interaction, but in terms of the gems that you're able to share with us at this point in time. You should probably call it Grant's Gems or something like that.
You could probably call it that if you want to, if you choose to. Yeah.
In terms of the book, if we wanted to get copies of it, where can we get copies?
You can find me on Amazon. That's The Mind of a Poet by Kevin Grant. You can find me on Facebook page under the Writers Union group as Kevin Grant. You can find me at these platforms. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's it. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch, and we look forward to the second edition to the book and all the improvements that you continue to make, sir.
Yes, I will. I will look forward to being back on your show for the second edition and share ideas with the public.
Okay.